host a free Father's Day celebration for Dalton residents on June
Let me
14th
turn
from
this
4
down.
p.m. to 8 p.m.
I'm watching something on Dalton, Chicago. Some bullshit. I can't put music on. I wish. I wonder. Let me see. I hope this works. This is the first time that I've done this with a earbud. So if it works, great. If it doesn't, I'm sorry. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play some Trump. I have the full unedited version. So I hope you guys like it. It's gonna be the first meeting that he had after the judgment of him being guilty. Let's just see. Oh, you know what? It won't work because it's on my.
First interview since the verdict. It's been 48 hours. Where's your head at?
Well, look, you know, I'm fighting for the Constitution. I'm fighting for the same thing that you three. I watch you all the time, and same thing that you do. You fight for freedom. You fight for your country. These people are sick. They're sick. They're deranged. You know, I talk about the enemy on the outside and the enemy from within. So you have Russia, you have China. But if you have a smart president, you always handle him quite easily, actually. We have a lot of advantages. But the enemy from within, they are doing damage to this country. They want open borders. They want high interest rates. They now want to quadruple your taxes. Quadruple. You know, all my life I watched politics, and it was always like, politicians want to lower taxes, not quadruple them. There's a whole sickness going on right now. So we're doing really well. It's very interesting. Jury came in. It was a tough venue. We tried to get out of the venue. We tried to get out of the judge. But we tried to get out of both. Wouldn't even think about it. So we had probably maybe the worst area in the whole country for me, you know, in terms of vote. I'm sure if I sat down and explained it to that section of the world, we could probably make progress. But one of the worst sections, and they always bring them to these sections, you know, DC, there, places where Republicans, not just me, Republicans get like.
First timers using a Mast Pro Archer. I have it set at 7.8. I'm going to be doing the Nat. Let me see. Can't see it. The Pirate. Let's see how it turns out.
Virtually no votes. But the good news is that I think we've set a record beyond all records for fundraising. That's like
I can't see my screen, so I apologize.
And another one just came out just before I got in that we're 6 points higher than we were before. So I don't know if that holds up. I mean, I'm just not sure, but people get it. It's a scam. And the Republican Party is really, they've stuck. They stick together in this. They see it's weaponization of the Justice Department, of the FBI. And you know, that's all coming out of Washington. You may think it's brag. Take a look at who opened the case. I'm not allowed to talk about it because I have a gag order. I'm probably, I guess, the first presidential nominee and the leading crooked Joe by a lot that's not allowed to talk.
Okay.
Maybe they're doing me a big favor, who knows? But I'm not allowed to talk, I'm gagged.
I'm sorry, I'm going to keep interrupting this thing. This is probably going to be the best interview that you hear other than the fact that this lady is on here. I don't like her for several reasons. One, she always throws the Latina shit in there. I'm cool with that, and that's fine, but anybody illegal needs to be thrown the fuck out. It doesn't matter whether you're Latina, whether you're fucking Russian, whether you're Irish. I don't give a fuck. People are saying that people were allowed in here for many centuries. No, they weren't. No, they weren't. Everybody went through Ellis Island and everybody had to sign a book to fucking get in here, and then they weeded them out that way. I don't believe in this shit that's going on right now. I believe the border should be made. We made the great, humanity made the Great Wall of China. Why the fuck can't we make one that goes across the United States? It's bewildering to me. So, but anyway, again, I'm gonna be fucking switching back and forth. Oh, Charles, come the right way, don't come. It's simple. There you go, sir. Absolutely. My ancestors came over here. They didn't come over here illegally. My grandparents came over here on the ship. They signed in. I have the documents and everything else. But they did it legally. Now you can't do that because we're not dropping bombs. We're not fucking blowing up fucking world trade centers. So it just doesn't make any sense anymore. But I digress.
Nobody's ever heard of it. Guys would say to me, that aren't as well versed, but they know about freedom and the Constitution. They say they can't gag you. It's all coming out. It's weaponization, and it's a very dangerous thing. We've never had that in this country. They do have it in other countries, in South American countries. You know a little bit about it, right?
Well, that actually leads me to my question. I think for a lot of Americans, what's happened to you feels foreign. Like this has never happened here before.
I hate her.
But for Hispanic Americans, people coming from Latin America, this feels very familiar.
Yeah.
And in those countries, people are imprisoned. Instead of going to the ballot box and fighting there, they're on house arrest. They're told they can't run for office. What is your message? And by the way, I think a lot of Hispanic Americans,
9-round liner.
they're scared about what they see.
9-round
What's
liner
your
we
message
use.
to them about what happened to you and about how scared they are that our country is turning into the countries that they left behind, the corrupt, dysfunctional countries they left behind?
And they are scared, and they're great people, and very entrepreneurial, great energy. And as you know, I'm doing very well with them. I mean, beyond.
I hope you can see it
I don't
and
think
hear it.
anybody's ever
Do
had
you think
Poland.
this is why a little bit?
I think a little bit. I think we even before people understood
Whoa.
what was going on,
Yeah.
I was doing well with the, you call them Hispanics, there's about 15 different
I
names.
know.
You call them
Latin
Don't say
Americans,
Latinx.
South American, they say Latin Americans, South Americans, Hispanics, a lot of different words. But we all know what we're talking about. And they've always liked me, and I've always liked them. I've done well from the beginning. In 2016, I won the entire border.
should do this on my
along
leg.
Texas, and they're all like 85%. And it's been great from the beginning, and now I'm leading. I think I'm leading over this guy that can't put two
Charles,
sentences
let me know if
together,
you could
that's
hear this.
destroying our country. Look, he's the worst president in the history of this country, and he's a danger to the country.
And that's inevitably, that's what I want to do, is have this playing. Unfortunately, my TV is over that way and it won't fucking work. But I have this here, so I'm just wondering if it's gonna work. Cool. Thanks, brother.
They have misinformation. Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. It's just words. He doesn't even know what it means. But it's like their slogan, I'm a threat to democracy. I'm the opposite. They're the threat to democracy. And now I hear they're starting to go over the lines with Russia, and Russia's getting a little bit nasty. Like, maybe we'll start using nuclear weapons. These people are really not a threat to democracy.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
A threat to the country, just to this country surviving. Beyond democracy, beyond anything. So now they tell Ukraine it's okay to start going and popping off Russia. How did we get in this mess? If I were president, there would have been no Ukraine. Not one Ukrainian would have been killed. Not one city would be knocked down. I mean, the place is a disaster right now. Most of the cities are knocked down. I guess they're saving Kiev for, they probably want to use it a little bit. So they're waiting. But not one, they're just lobbing missiles in. Not much they can do about it. But now they want to get aggressive and they want to fight back. And it's okay. But boy, that's a big statement. And the N-word is being mentioned.
Right.
And the N-word is the nuclear word. And
Oop, I was gonna say another N-word.
we're probably in real numbers, 250 billion. And
Nancy
Europe's
boy.
about 70.
I don't know what you guys were thinking.
And I say, why isn't Europe? Why aren't the European nations, which would be NATO, which I kept together, which I was able to keep together by getting them to pay. They weren't paying. We were paying for the whole thing practically. There were only 8 nations that were paid up, including us. And I got hundreds of billions of dollars from them. I said, look, if you don't pay, we're going to leave. We're not going to defend you if you don't pay. And they paid. That's where they have the money now because of what I did. Because Obama didn't do anything. He'd go and make a speech. Bush didn't do anything. Nobody did anything. And I looked at the statement. I'm good at statements. I looked at a
Obama
statement
gave
and I
free
said,
health care.
Nobody's paying. We're paying. We were
Oh,
paying for, I'll bet you 90%, could even be more than that. And then they take advantage of us on trade very badly, almost as badly as China. You know, nobody would believe that, but the European nations take tremendous, they don't buy our cars, they don't buy our farm products, they don't buy anything. And then we're supposed to defend them. So I said, no, you gotta pay up.
Who knows, Charles?
You're supposed to. One of the leaders said to me,
Paying
does that
fucking-
mean that
You know
we
what?
were attacked by Russia?
And Charles, you need to open up your channel and start doing goddamn speeches as well. It's all because we're paying for fucking college and school for these fucks that aren't appreciative of anything. They're not appreciative of anything. My son just graduated college, and he did it with a personal loan. Is he gonna get reimbursed? Fuck no, he ain't. He's gonna have to pay for his fucking school. I'm not paying for it because I taught him how to fucking pay for his own shit. But it's fucking bullshit that all these other motherfuckers are going to school free or with government assistance, and the ones that aren't are getting bullshit kickbacks so they can live at school, eating, drinking, fucking going to school, having a fucking swell time, and we're paying for it. We are paying for it. Fuck sticks.
That means you're not gonna pay us? You're not gonna defend us? I said, are you telling me you're delinquent? That's a real estate term. Are you delinquent, like delinquent on your rent? Are you delinquent? Yes, if we don't pay. I said, no, we're not gonna protect you. The next day, billions of dollars started pouring in. It was sort of amazing. If you said the other, why would they do it? And that's what they've done for years. But now they're talking about a different level of war. Now they're talking about getting aggressive. But they have to be careful because they're being beaten pretty badly, you know. They're being beaten pretty badly. And what a mess. To think it would have never happened, Israel would have never happened, Ukraine would have never happened, and Israel would have never been attacked. And you wouldn't have had inflation. And you would have had a great military. You would have had a lot of things right now that you don't have. And you wouldn't have an electric car mandate, which is one of the great jokes of all time.
Are you fucking
and I think
kidding me?
everybody should have an electric.
West Point? Fuck. Charles. Fucking hooah. Fucking hooah. West Point. I'm an idiot. I'm a dumb grunt. Did I have the chance and the opportunity to go green to gold? Yes, I did. Because I'm semi-intelligent. But unfortunately, I did not do it. But fucking kudos to your daughter, man. Fucking hooah. That's high speed, bro.
They want one, but they should be able to buy other forms of propulsion.
Mr. President, I want to return to the verdict, and I want to explore something you said several times already in the conversation. You've referenced these people. I'm sure you've seen the video of Joe Biden when he was asked about the verdict, and he gave sort of a smirk to the camera.
That fucking smirk.
Remember, Bragg didn't want to do the case. He came out. He said, there's no case, and how can you have a witness like so-and-so? I'm not allowed to mention the name. Can you believe this? This guy's allowed to have shows, television shows. I'm not allowed to mention the name. It's so unfair.
Fucking hooah, Charles.
You know, you have to really play the hand.
Let her know I said hooah.
And then you had a jury that was, from a certain persuasion. Would have been hard to do no matter what. But I did absolutely nothing wrong. I mean, absolutely, think of it. You know, I hate when they say a bookkeeping, this and that. It's not. It's called, think of it, expense. I use the word expense. Legal expense. I pay a lawyer. He wasn't a fixer. He was a lawyer at the time. I pay a lawyer, and he's a lawyer. It's called legal expense.
And he's a lawyer.
A bookkeeper, without ever speaking to me, because she did the right thing, who's been with me for years, marks it down as legal expense. In other words, I paid a legal expense. It's marked down as a legal expense.
Oh my God.
And they say that's a fraud. What am I going to call it? Did you ever see a ledger? Do you ever study accounting? The line's like about an inch long and an eighth of an inch wide. You can't write the story. But there is no story. If you pay a legal expense and you write it down as a legal expense, and then they indict you and they go to a grand jury, and they don't use Bob Casella's testimony, they
Sounds
use
like my
almost
wife,
none of
bro.
it. They didn't want him before the grand jury.
She's skilled in
very
every
precise.
fucking instrument.
This judge didn't want him to talk. They
Pick
shouldn't
something up
allow
and she fucking plays it.
certain people to testify. It was totally wrong that they did that. So everyone tells me this is the easiest case they've ever seen to overturn, but they don't care because they want to last till after the election. Now, the only problem they have is that so far my poll numbers have gone up. You explain this to me because I don't Pete maybe can explain it. Maybe Will, I don't know, maybe Will can. They're smart in Texas, right? But the poll numbers have gone up.
Because Rachel's an idiot.
I don't know if that's going to remain that way. They're tired of it, weaponization. They call it lawfare.
You changed your tone at some point during the trial. I would say maybe a bit more hopeful in the beginning, and then towards the end you said something to the effect of even Mother Teresa couldn't be acquitted in this venue. Was there a moment in the trial that you felt like it turned, or you saw that it was headed in a certain direction?
Well, when you object to something, your lawyers
Yes, sir.
are good lawyers, professional.
The gag
lawyers,
will
good
be
records,
lifted after
nice
sentencing.
people.
July
I've had a lot of lawyers that
11th.
weren't nice, and sometimes you're better off that way. These are really fine people. They didn't object. Not accepted. Not accepted. Not accepted. When the government, meaning the DA, Bragg, when he said something, all right, good, that's fine. Go ahead, more. But the main thing is this: this was turned down by the Southern District. This is over years. This could have been brought 7 years ago. You know, they tried to rush it because they wanted it before the election. But this could have been brought 7 years ago, but they didn't have any attention. A case like this has never been brought before. And there's never been a case where a state has gone after a federal election. In other words, that's for a federal, that's for like the Southern District to go. Southern District turned it down. We got clearance from the FEC, Federal Election Commission, clearance. They're suing, say we violated the thing, but they gave us clearance. But the charge was written, I mean, it was like a weird charge. You have a little of this, a little of that, do a little of this, throw a little, mix it up.
Given all of that, you know, we're watching this trial. I was watching it on TV.
Yeah.
You're living it. You're in the middle of it. And regardless of all of that, still, when that verdict is being read, what's going through your head?
Well, it was weird because we go in and the judge, it looked like it was a hung jury for a while. And it's sort of the most you could hope for because in the area, it's almost impossible. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen people that, no matter how the three of you, we're all sort of similar in terms of would like to see strong borders, low taxes, and strong military, and lots of good things, right? You know, all common sense. I call it the party of common sense. And we're people of common sense. Who wants to have an open border where millions of people are coming into our country, right? Millions and millions. And not just from South America, they're coming in from
The Congo,
Africa, from the Middle East, from Europe, from all over the world they're coming in. And they're coming in from jails and they're coming in from mental institutions, insane asylums, the worst, some of the sickest people, mentally ill people are being dropped into our country.
and we're taking care of them, and we're not taking care of veterans.
Now I'm gonna do the big deportation, the biggest ever. Eisenhower did the biggest, this would be bigger. But it's a very tough thing. What they've done to our country is unthinkable, that they could do this. And so many other things. I mean, like, you go into New York, the kids can't have Little League games anymore.
Because they're
It
sleeping in
sounds
the
so
fucking
trivial,
parks.
right?
Why?
Because the migrants are living in the fields. They have all tents, unless you want to play around the tents, it's a little bit tough.
Yes, sir.
It's a little bit tough to play. But
Yes,
no, I
sir.
mean, but when you think of, like, common sense, who really thinks that men should be playing in women's sports? Right? It's you know, something I mention all the time, gets one of the biggest applause, but who, you know, where does the mind come from? A man playing, look at the weightlifting records. I mean, it's weightlifting. Guys that never lifted anything before, they're breaking the records by numbers that are like unthinkable against women that are the top women, they're the strongest, and they're
Here's-
getting blown away.
These motherfuckers that are lifting and all this other sports and everything else, what do you think? Do you think they're voting Democrat or do you think they're voting fucking Republican? It's an upended question, man. I already know the answer.
Hey, who would think the swimming records, the track records, it's crazy. It's just crazy. I actually, when I first heard about it, you know, what was it, like 6, 7, 8 years ago, right? When I first heard about it, I actually thought they were kidding. I thought, you know, this was just a funny joke.
I have my
But they're
Chingadora
actually
right here.
serious about it. They're actually committed to it. And who would want that? Who would want open borders? Who would want this to? Who would not want to have taxes be low and expenses be reasonable and good schools and all of the things? I mean, who would want to have our army tanks? We make the greatest army tanks in the world. I saved that factory in
M1A2
Ohio.
Bradley,
I saved it. Lyman. I
M1A1
saved it.
Abrams,
They were going to close it. I saved it as actually the president.
M113
A friend of mine called up, he said, they're gonna close down our army tank factory and we're not gonna be able to make army tanks. I said, that doesn't sound good. When I visited it, it was unbelievable. The people there were unbelievable. They wanna make them now an electric,
Right.
but they don't go far and they have to pull a wagon because the wagon, the battery is so big.
Charles,
The army tanks
can you even
will have
imagine
wagon
a
like
fucking
child. It's pulling a
electric
wagon. It's a
tank?
heavy wagon too, very heavy. The whole thing is crazy. These people are crazy.
Mr. President, you've been through a lot.
Yeah.
In your presidency, what they've done to you, you've got the verdict that just came through. A lot of Democrats have expressed concern that if you're elected, you're going to want revenge. And some of your supporters have
You
said,
should.
well, mutually, we're
fucking
talking
should.
about the weaponization of the justice system
Right,
against
sure.
political opponents. Some of your supporters have said, well, the only way to stop this is mutually assured destruction, right? If you do it to us, we're going to do it to you. You've said, no, my revenge is going to be success for America. You've just had this verdict.
Yeah.
Do you still feel the same? What's your thoughts on that?
It's a really tough question in one way, because these are bad people. These people are sick. And
They're
they
sick.
do things that are so destructive. I mean, look what they did from the day I got there. And I don't know, a lot of people said, we have no choice but to elect Trump. Republicans, because he's the only one that can withstand this. Don't forget, if it weren't me, they'd be going after somebody else. And I know a lot
They're
of
not,
the
sir.
competition, they wouldn't do so well. They wouldn't be doing so well. Right now, they'd be saying, Mommy, take me home. I want to go home. This is brutal. But these are sick people. And for instance, the 51 intelligence agents, who thinks of these? And they think about it, just like they say, I'm guilty of, and all this information was from so many years before the election. It was before
Right.
the election. So it wasn't like, oh, gee, I won an election. The election just started coming out during the trial. They said, oh, I have an idea. Remember John Lovett's The Liar? Yeah. I
On
went to
SNL?
Harvard. Yeah. I went.
John
They
Lovitz.
do that during the trial. Yeah, that's right. It affected the election. This stuff never even came. I never even heard about affecting the election. They're talking about the election of 2016. They're going back. Somebody brought it up today. It was very interesting on your network. Somebody brought
Here's
it up.
an
They
amazing
said,
thing. Okay, this is, there needs to be a mass vigilante justice. Yes and no, sir. Unfortunately, the people like you and I would do it properly. Unfortunately, you have fucking other people that would not do it properly, that would do it illegally, and it would cause mass hysteria, it would cause issues. It would make us look bad. What I do believe is that we should have, as soon as Trump goes in, he's gonna clean house. When he said that he's gonna, what did he say? He's gonna, what did the Democrats say? Not empower, he's gonna start a revolt or whatever the fuck they said. I don't even remember because it's so fucking stupid. But anyway, good. You motherfuckers haven't been doing it correctly. You haven't been doing it correctly. You motherfuckers, look at the fucking, how many people have we let in the fucking border now? I have a buddy that works for Border Patrol. He says it's crazy. He can't wait to fucking retire because it's so insanely fucking crazy. And it's still catch and release. You catch the motherfucker, and what they do is they go back to the processing center is what he calls it, and then they fucking release them. And what about the ones that attacked those several National Guards guys rushing through the fucking fence? Are you fucking kidding me? And they were all released, and they're now citizens. Fuck this, man. Charles, you and I are moving back to fucking Ireland. I know you're not from there, but we're moving back to Ireland.
The funny thing is that they're deniers, because they're now saying that Trump changed the election.
But that's a great point because you're talking about the intel agencies. Obviously, remember what Chuck Schumer said? He said, if you tick off the intel agencies, they'll find a way to get you 6 ways a day. If you're elected, are you going to reform the intel community? What
I should do this on my
exactly
leg.
will you do to make sure they don't target Americans like this?
First of all, if you remember, when I
Absolutely,
took over, we had
sir.
a guy named Cohen.
Absolutely.
He was there. I
Day
didn't
one
like
needs to be the
him. I
border.
didn't
How
like
and
him. I thought he was terrible, actually.
why is Mexico not being held
And he
liable
tried
for
to
that?
get me,
Yes.
and I reversed it.
And a female just
You
got
know, some people
elected.
said he cost Hillary the election.
Let's see how
and he didn't want
let's
to.
see how she does.
But he was a bad guy, not a capable guy, an evil guy. And they were doing things that, I mean, I won't mention here because it's so conspiratorial. I don't want to be conspiratorial. It's too nice a show. But
What the fuck?
bad guy. I fired him. Then I fired Strzok and Page and this one and that. Well, I got rid of that whole.
Strzok was the one that had the porno
And we were doing
messages
great.
with a
We
fucking
were-
employee.
And in other places too. Pete knows better than anybody.
Peter
The Veterans
Strauss.
Administration, you know, at the end of my term, we had a 92% approval rating. It was at 40 when we took it over. Pete used to call up, just as somebody that we knew each other a little bit through this stuff. And he'd complain about things. He'd also complain about soldiers being treated unfairly. A soldier is trained to be a soldier. And somebody
Yes, sir.
does it tough. And if we didn't have them, we wouldn't have a country, Frank. And then they get into a fight, and it's nasty, and they win. And then they want to lock them up for 30 years. And we took care of a lot of people, a lot. And it was just unfair. They trained them to be killers. And then they do their job against some very bad people. I'm not saying good people. I'm saying they beat some very bad people. If you didn't have guys like the ones that we know, they wouldn't last very long. And then they want to lock them up for 30 years. You know, it's sort of,
That's the special
they train them
forces
to do
guy.
their job. They do their job, and then they say, let's lock them up. Look, it's a very interesting question, and I say it, and it sounds beautiful, right? You know, my revenge will be success, and I mean that. But it's awfully hard when you see what they've done. These people are so evil. And at the same time, the country can come together. You know, I'm saying this, but the country can come together. You know, during...
Oh, Charles, don't tell Bob I'm
prior to
wearing
COVID,
shorts.
We had the most
I'm
successful...
wearing shorts because I'm
country
thinking
we've ever
about
had.
fucking tattooing my leg.
Everybody's Hispanic, black, Asian, women, men without a
I don't have
diploma,
sandals,
men with MIT, Wharton, and Harvard diplomas, all of them put together. Everybody was making more money, doing better than they've ever done before. And radical left people, I would call them radical left, were coming up to me and say, could we meet? It was coming together, and then we had COVID, our gift from China. Came out of Wuhan, like I said, right? I remember I told you that a long time ago, I never changed. It was the Wuhan lab. They made a mistake. And by the way, it was incompetence. I walked out to have lunch with his girlfriend, and
Fauci had his hearings today.
It was a disaster. Okay, what happened? But we did a great job. Never got credit for that. Always got credit for a good economy, for taking out Soleimani, taking out al-Baghdadi. You know, I defeated ISIS. ISIS was going to take 5 years.
That's
at least,
awesome,
and they don't
Charles.
think- Mattis
God
said,
bless America.
Sir, it'll take at least 5 years. I got it done in like 3 months.
Fucking
I defeated
God.
ISIS. Our military is so great. The real generals, the guys that know how to fight. One of the things that I hated.
Our
to see,
military
I think
was
one of
great
the
until
lowest
we
points in
accepted
history of
female in the
was
infantry.
Afghanistan, the way that happened. And you know, I dealt with Abdul, the leader of the Taliban, and I had conversations with him on the phone, and frankly, the media went crazy. Why is he speaking to, that's, you know, it's like I always say, Jesse James, why do you rob the banks? That's where the money is.
I
That's
know.
where the killing
I
was.
mentioned
That's where
it.
the snipers were, with Abdul. And I had some nice conversations. We didn't lose one person in 18 months. And then they took over, and they were killing us like Abdul was a very happy man when I was out. And then they had that disaster, the leaving of Afghanistan, the way they left. You know, we were going to leave, but we were going to keep Bagram, which is one of the biggest air bases in the world, cost us billions and billions of dollars to build many years ago. But we were going to leave because of China, because it's 1 hour away from it, where China makes its, forget about Afghanistan, it's exactly right next to China. It's exactly 1 hour away from where they make their nuclear weapons. Isn't that a great thing? We're going to keep it. We're going to leave 4,000 people and keep it strong, right? They gave it up. They gave up everything. And they moved the military out first. You move the military out
Oh, my
last.
stencil just
I always
left.
say, I give a child 5 years old. I
I
say,
just washed my stencil
okay, now
away.
those are the facts.
Let's see how this turns
Would you
out.
move the military out first, or would you move? First, we would have taken our people out. Then we would have taken some people that helped us. Shouldn't be too many. I mean, how many people can you take? But nevertheless, there were people that helped us take them out. But we have Americans left behind. We have 13 dead soldiers, incredible. The parents, largely, they came
For the
here
withdrawal of
shortly after
Afghanistan.
that, and we're going to have them back too. they said, well, we won't see President Trump. He'll come maybe for a couple of minutes. I stayed with him for 4 hours. We listened to music up in the deck. It's beautiful. It was just nice. You know, they're great people. They're devastated. That would have never happened. We would have left with dignity and strength. And then you take out your equipment. They left $85 billion worth of equipment. I rebuilt the entire military. 85 billion of it was left in Afghanistan. And they're one of the biggest, the Taliban, they're one of the biggest sellers of military equipment now, Will, in the whole world. I think they're number 2.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Because they don't need 730,000 rifles. They have 730,000. I mean, I don't know what, we go to fight a war, what did they do, 37
I'm gonna make you a moderator.
rifles for every soldier?
How do I do
It's
that?
crazy, but we had 730 some odd thousand rifles, and then we had 72,000 vehicles, many of them armor plated. You know how expensive, with 4-inch armor, 4-inch like this on the bottom. And they sell all that stuff. They're one of the largest, because they don't need all of it. You know, they can keep, instead of, think of what 72,000 vehicles is. If you take the biggest used parking lot, used car lot in Texas, think Texas, they're big. They probably have, what, 500 cars? We have 70,000. 70,000. And many are armor plated. They have the, you know, they had to make the armor where it goes like this because the bombs are so powerful. Soleimani, taken out. They're so powerful. But what that was doing was killing everybody on the side of it.
Right.
Because it was going like that. So, you know, it's a tough thing. But some of these things cost millions of dollars, and we left it all behind.
I want to follow up on what Rachel asked you, though, because I hear you struggling with it. I hear you say it's a tough question, a bit unsure. You famously said regarding Hillary Clinton, lock her up. You declined to do that as president. But now,
And purposely, because after I won, you know, it's different when you win. I see it tonight, I'm going to UFC with Dana White. And I see fighters, they come in with hatred like you wouldn't believe it. It's amazing. It's a little metaphor on life, right? The hatred, they hate each other. Then after the fight, somebody wins, somebody loses. Sometimes they get knocked out. Sometimes it's, but they hug and they kiss each other. They're so crazy. I beat her. It's easier when you win. And they all said lock her up. And I felt, and I could have done it, but I felt it would have been a terrible thing. And then this happened to me. And so I may feel differently about it. I can't tell you, I'm not sure I can answer the question. Hillary Clinton, I didn't say lock her up, but the people would all say lock her up, okay. Then we won, and I said pretty openly, I say, all right, come on, just relax, let's go, we're gonna make our country great.
Yeah.
And it would have been, think of it, you lock up the wife of a president of the United
But they
States.
want to lock you up over $130,000 of an accounting thing, and she actually.
And a perfectly stated accounting thing. Success will bring the country together, because I had it together. Before the China virus came in, I had it together. We really had it together. And it would have stayed. I think it would have stayed. Everybody was doing better. The country was doing better than it had ever done. And we're going back to those same policies, and then some. And then some. One of the bigger differences I know, you know, before I won, I was in Washington, the press says, about 17 times. I never stayed over. So I wasn't a Washington person. And I relied on people for recommendations. And I got, you know, a lot of great ones. Look, we had great, the economics, Bob Lighthizer, so many people. We had great people, but we also had some that I wouldn't have put. I don't have to use their names, but that I wouldn't have put. Now I know all. I know the tough ones and the weak ones and the smart ones and the dumb ones and the, you know, we know the strong ones. And so I think it's going to be very good, and we're ready to go. But the country is really going bad. When you look at all these people, millions of people coming into this country, I really think, other than nuclear weapons, which I think are the single biggest threat, not global warming, when they say that the seas will rise over the next 400 years, 1/8 of an inch, you know, which means basically you have a little more beachfront property, okay? Think of it. The seas are going to rise. Who knows? But this is the big threat. I watched Biden the other night. It's the greatest existential. He loves that word because it's a big word, and he thinks, you know, he knows. He doesn't even know what the hell the word means.
And he can't spell it.
He goes, it's the greatest existential threat to our country, global warming. In the meantime, you get these maniacs with nuclear weapons that can do damage, which I won't even talk to you about, but I know the damage. It's the greatest. There has never been anything like it, the power of weaponry today. It will be obliteration, and that's your real threat. But in terms of our country, a real threat are the people that are coming in, that are being allowed to come in.
We're gonna move on to some other topics too, but just moving forward.
Pete
they set
stopped them.
The arraignment date for 4 days before the RNC.
Yeah, well, that's part of the game.
It is, some have suggested you could appeal straight to the Supreme Court because of the
Yeah.
special nature of this case. When it comes to the legal maze that you're still facing, and they could, the judge could decide to say, hey, house arrest or even jail.
One of my lawyers the other day on television saying, oh no, you don't want to do that to the president. I said, you don't beg for anything, you just, the way it is, think of it. They have all my books, you know, they went to, for 5 years they sued me getting my tax returns, right? At the end of 5 years, they got them. The Supreme Court actually gave it to them. That was the end of it, that was it. They never found anything. They hired the best accounting firms. I had a pure gold firm, they call it a gold rated firm. I don't know, it's supposed to be, who knows? But with all that stuff, for years you heard about
Yeah.
my tax.
I never looked into the Clinton Foundation.
And they never found it. They never went all the way with the Clinton Foundation. They never went all the way with the Clinton Foundation, which is sort of interesting, isn't it? But, so that could happen. I don't know that the public would stand it.
So I dropped that thing on the ground, so I'm just cleaning my hands, just so you know. I think with the Clinton Foundation, I hate to say it, and I know I'm gonna get some fucking naysayers and people to talk shit, and I love Trump. I'm all fucking MAGA. I think he was over on Epstein's Island. I think. I'm not saying he did, but that seemed like it was the party scene. Now, not necessarily with kids. I'm not saying that Trump did anything with any fucking kids. I'm saying he went there as a fucking party, and he knew what was going. He knew what was going on. So I don't think anybody really wants to talk about Epstein, especially Hillary Clinton, because it's already proven that fucking old Billy Boy was on the fucking plane records of him arriving at Epstein's little fucking porno village. Sick fuck. I just wish he would have made the fucking the court date or wherever the fuck.
I'm not sure the public would stand for it. With a,
You're saying if they tried house arrest or?
I think it would be tough for the public to take. You know, at a certain point, there's a breaking point. It's very funny. I watched the radical left, and I watched the right, and everyone's always talking about the right. You know, this side, the right. The right's not the problem. When you look at Portland, when you look at what happened in Minneapolis, if I didn't call out the National Guard, which I wasn't even supposed to because the governors are supposed to call, you wouldn't even have Minneapolis right now. Minneapolis would be wiped out. Remember the CNN anchor? I think it was Velshi. He's standing there. This is a friendly protest. This is very friendly. And then somebody hit him with a knee.
Mostly peaceful.
Yeah, mostly peaceful. This is friendly. This
Somebody
is
hit him.
mostly, and you look behind, the entire city's burning. It was like the Second World War. The whole city is burning. The fire behind him, and he's talking about it. This is friendly. This is a friendly protest. That's exactly it. No, it's crazy. It's good. What's going on is crazy. Don't forget, I got millions of more votes the second time than I got the first time. Very rare. Obama got millions less, you know, and he won. I got millions more. I got 63 million the first time. I got millions more, close to 12 million more that we know about. That's there. That's those. They said if you get 63, this is McLaughlin, Fabrizio, the big pollsters, good pollsters. They said if you could get the same number, you win. I got millions more. Very rarely does a president get more. They win or they lose, but they don't get, you know, very rarely get more. Obama got a lot less. He got a lot less the second time. Anyone, it's so bad for our country. And I wouldn't have done this. And then I had good Republicans running, and you know, it was the fastest nomination in history. I got it very fast. You know, in theory, it just ends like this weekend.
Right.
You'd find out a normal thing. You'd find out this weekend who would win. And I got it, I won it months ago against, good
Yeah,
competition.
you wrapped it up pretty quick. So this interview is going really fast, and I know we have like a bunch of other questions. So
Okay.
can we
Yes.
kind
They're
of
cutting
throw
them
that
off.
and kind of keep our answers
Sure.
short so we can get to it? Okay, so I'm going to start with this one. Americans have lost a lot of trust in institutions, and I think there's been a lot of discussion, especially online,
She cut
especially with
fucking
young people.
Donald off.
How do we rebuild that trust in institutions? The CIA, the FBI, all those institutions.
You're right.
Some people think that one way to build trust is to declassify things that everyone's talking about. I know you talked earlier about, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist. So if you were president, would you declassify, you can answer yes or no to these. Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah,
Would you declassify JFK files?
yeah.
Would
I
you,
did a lot of it.
How about
would
Roswell?
you declassify the Epstein files?
How about Roswell?
Yeah.
I'm interested in
I
Roswell.
guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would, or at least
Do you think that would restore trust? Help restore trust?
Yeah, I don't know about Epstein so much as I do the others. Certainly about the way he died. It'd be interesting to find out
Sure.
what happened there because that was a weird situation and the cameras didn't happen to be working, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I'd go a long way toward that one. The other stuff I would definitely do the January 6th because,
And yeah, Yeah.
beyond all of them. Because what happened, how about the Unselect Committee? They had meetings, they had all Democrats and 2 failed Republicans, right? Cheney and crying Adam Kinzinger. See, Biden couldn't do this interview. Do you think he'd remember crying Adam Kinzinger? Do you think he'd remember all these different names?
He don't remember what the
Different
fuck
folks?
he
And
ate
I didn't know you were
yesterday.
gonna be talking about this. But can you imagine? The whole thing is crazy what we're doing, what we're going in. I got to know the leaders of all the countries, and they're at the top of their game. They're very sharp, they're vicious. That's why they're doing so well. Honduras, all of them, I know every one of them, and they're very streetwise people. You know that better than anybody. They're streetwise, and they're smart. And they love their country, or they want to do a good job for their country, or themselves. Doesn't matter, because whatever it is. And they're moving all of their bad people into our country. And Venezuela just reported to 72%, that their crime is down 72% in a year. You know why? Because they moved all their criminals
They're
into
here.
the United States. And the next time we do an interview, we'll do it in Venezuela, because it'll be much safer than being in our...
Well, you brought up deportations in this interview.
Yeah.
How can you implement deportations, and do you think the public will have the appetite, the stomach for watching deportations on their television screen?
Well, the second part of that question is so great and so tough. Because, the radical left is going to start saying, oh, look, so you'll get rid of 10 really bad ones. And one, beautiful mother who they think is guilty of something, and maybe she is, maybe, and it'll become a story, or a family that's a good family and came in wrong, and they're going to show, then it's going to always be tough. It's not going to be easy. And we have to use a lot of good judgment, but the way you get rid of them is the local police. The local police know these people by their first name, their middle name, and their last name. The local police are great. They're just not allowed to do their job. They're afraid of
This stems from him saying that our hands were tied. I'm actually a retired deputy sheriff. I pulled over a vehicle once on a highway. Hi, Mama.
losing their pension, They're afraid of losing their wife or husband. They're going to lose their house. They're
Can't
losing
say anything
everything.
because my daughter.
And one of the things I'm doing is giving local police immunity from prosecution. They get prosecuted. When they do their job, they get like your soldiers. When they do their job, when they watch department stores being raided by 500 people, well, guys are walking out with television sets and they're told to stand back. Okay? They're told to stand back. Do not do anything. And they go into these stores, these big stores that have, opened 2 years ago, and they spent $25 million to build a store. And the stores are empty down to the shelves. They even take the shelves out. They take everything. And the cops are standing there. They don't want to be standing there. They want to do their job. You know who's great? The Border Patrol. The Border Patrol, I know them so well. They endorsed me. They always endorse me. They said when Trump comes back, it'll all be better. And Biden, by the way, he doesn't need any legislation. He could say the word, close the border. That's what I did. I said, close the border. And it was so bad that it took a little while. I fixed the border originally. That's how I got elected in a way. But now the border's, and I fixed it, and I couldn't even use it in 2020. In 2016, it was a big factor of my win. I fixed it very quickly, and then in 2020, it was so good. I said, let me talk about the border. My people over here, all these geniuses said, please, sir, don't talk about the border. It's fixed. I said, let's talk about it. But nobody wanted to hear about it. But now the border is 100 times worse than it was in 2016.
And you mentioned Will asked about deportations, and you mentioned local authorities having more power. What do you do in sanctuary locales? Because so much of that is, they can't even talk to ICE, let alone work with ICE. If you're going to deport 5, 7, 10 million illegals, it's going to require a lot.
The people and even the politicians don't want sanctuary cities. They really don't. I've spoken to many people in California, and they're fed up. They're fed up. They can't take it anymore. They don't want it. Even liberal Democrats, they don't want it anymore. You have to end sanctuary cities. I mean, they're guarding criminals. They're guarding people that are killing people, and you can't get to them. And guys like Gavin Newsom he's a disaster. He's running it so badly. It's so badly run. And I watched him on Sean Hannity's show with that debate, and he'll talk like everything's wonderful. It's great. Go California. It's not. It's doing terribly. It's doing terribly, but somebody has to call him out.
No shade.
They have to call him out. But the job of sanctuary cities is it's just so horrible.
I have another question on the border.
Yeah.
So in just this fiscal year 2024, there's been 74,000 unaccompanied children that have come across the border. In 2023, get this number, 137,275. You've seen the images of these
Right.
children, 5, 7 years old, 9 years old, 12 years old. And the Joe Biden administration has lost 80,000 of them. No one can track, no one knows where they're at.
At least, much more.
At least, there's probably more, but at least. Will the Trump administration commit to finding these children, to finding them and returning them to their families, to their countries? Because many of them have been lost into sex trafficking.
Many of them are dead.
It's heartbreaking.
No, it's heartbreaking. It's amazing.
Will you commit to that? Will you commit to finding those children in their
I haven't been asked that question, but the answer is yes. It's a simple answer. Many of them are dead. They have done such a bad job. And they go into the guys that they're doing this wonderful job of letting people come in. It's also really bad? The caravans. I think I came up with that name a long time, but where you form 25, 30, 40,000 people coming up. The level of abuse and just anger and craziness toward women. I mean, the caravans, the mothers put their daughters in those caravans.
Hi, Mama.
Knowing in many cases the daughter's not coming back, knowing for almost certainty that the daughter's going to be raped.
Yes.
They give them large, bottles of birth control pills, the mothers, because they know they're going to be raped on the way up all the time.
Unconscionable.
No, the whole thing is incredible. And Biden thinks he's doing a favor by allowing. And the only reason they have the caravans is because I ended it all. People weren't getting in. We had the lowest number ever, the final week the lowest number that we've ever had, recorded number of illegal immigration. I had it down. Caravans anymore. You had them when I came in. You didn't have them anymore. It was really good. All he had to do is go to the beach and let my people do the job. Just let them stay. and remain in Mexico. I had a policy remain. You think that was easy to get? Will, remain in Mexico from the president, who's a great guy. He's actually a great guy, but he likes Mexico. He doesn't like us, okay? Remain. Tijuana was a mess. Tijuana had to be the fastest growing city. They had hundreds of thousands they couldn't come into our country until we approved them, and we didn't approve too many of them. Very seldom did we approve anyone. But they gave up all that stuff that I had. Catch and release, I called it catch and release in Mexico. We catch and release in this country. We'd catch a killer, know that he's a killer, and release him in our country. I mean, who would do this? Who would allow this? So we ran a great thing. If he went to the beach, because somebody convinced him that he looks good in a bathing suit, And at 81 or 82, typically you don't look too great. And he didn't have the power to lift those chairs. Those chairs weigh about 6 ounces. They're meant for children and old people. And he can't carry it. Anyway.
Let's talk about Vice President. Pete and I have gone off the wall. We've talked about historically, presidents pick vice presidents based upon what states they can deliver. We've talked about the fact that you're looking for, it seems to be that you might be looking for a fighter. Let's just ask you directly. What are you looking for in a vice president?
So you always have to say, and I mean it, is if something should happen to the president, you have to get somebody who can be the president, okay? And I think you have to say it. And then the second thing, I want somebody that can selfishly help me to get elected. But typically, if you look over the years, look back 100 years, it's almost never that a vice president helps. I mean, you're out there all by yourself. You really are. There's a day or two of, hoopla, you picked a vice president, then it goes back. But it's almost never helped. Actually, the one person that helped, I guess you could say, is Lyndon Johnson, because he was a real political animal. And he sort of helped a little bit politically with Daley, et cetera, I guess. But, that's the theory anyway. But typically, a vice president doesn't help. So I would say somebody that you can get along with, somebody that can help you get elected, somebody that can be, and first is somebody that can be a very good president.
Did you learn any lessons from the last person you picked that will help you either pick or not pick somebody in the next time?
Pence was a good.
I feel badly for Mike because he was a very nice person. I got along with him for I'd say 3 years and 11 months.
Debate's coming up on June 27th.
Yeah.
How do you prepare for that? And you stated it, Joe Biden's in a different place. What's your strategy coming into it?
So, the debates are interesting because I had never debated before, and then I debated a lot on the first, in 2016, I had like 14 debates or something. And it's been good. I mean, it's been good for me. It's been work. I think I won every debate. But I never had, it was very interesting. In 2016, I said, who are these people I'm debating? Half of them I never heard of because, they're governors from someplace who they're senators. I said, start with Ted Cruz. And they said, well, he's the national debate champion. He's the this, he's the that. And I said, that's not good news. That's not good. I mean, I could have done with a little bit less. Maybe I should have started with somebody else. But they were all, they're talented politicians. That's what, for the most part, they're politicians. Very interesting. In running for president, 92% were politicians and 8% were generals. Not admirals, right? Generals. And that's it. So when, all of a sudden I'm going in as a business guy and different kind of a guy. But we had great 4 years. We were very successful, the things with largest tax cuts in history. We had the largest regulation cuts in history. We had the best economy in history. We rebuilt our military. We had no wars. I defeated ISIS.
But since you've been out of office, things have deteriorated. And we've talked a little
At
bit
a
about
level
that.
that's not even believable.
And I think most people agree with you on that. One of the areas I want to talk about, and it's related to the border, but it's much bigger than that.
God,
And that's the
every
problem
question
with
she
China
has is
taking
about
over the
the
Western
fucking
Hemisphere.
border.
So we've had an 8,000% increase coming over the border of Chinese military men. I'd like to know your thoughts on what you think they're doing here. They're buying up farmland. But then in Latin America, they're making deals with governments. We're not doing the deals. They're buying up infrastructure. They're buying up, resources. They're taking over the Western Hemisphere.
They're taking over the Panama Canal.
So what?
How about the Panama Canal?
It's crazy.
And we built and lost 36,000 people to the mosquitoes. 36,000 people died.
So what will you do? Because there's a lot of people worried about the entire hemisphere now. We used to worry about things over far away. This is in our hemisphere. What will you do to stop all the things that are happening, from the farmland to all the ways that they're winning in the Western, in our backyard?
So, if you remember, with China, I turned it around. First of all, I exposed China. Because everyone was giving everything, oh, it's a developing nation. I said, this is not we're a developing nation. They're a very rich
They had
nation.
4G when we had 2G.
Well. But I turned things. I also got along very well with President Xi, but I did something that nobody did. I charged him hundreds of billions of dollars of tariffs. We would have lost our steel industry. We would have lost they had to pay hundreds, like close to $500 billion in tariffs. And that was all turning around. And we have tremendous power with respect to China, but we don't have people that know anything about using it. I had a great relationship, but had the election been different, we wouldn't have had fentanyl coming in. I was with Xi, and we just had a very good relationship. He was at Mar-a-Lago for 3 days. It was amazing. We had a good bond. Now, I don't want to act naive. Oh, I had, these characters out there, they'll say, oh, look, he loves China, or likes it, or at least wants to run it very strongly, right? And it was very interesting. I said, no, he's a smart guy. Is he a smart guy? Of course he's a smart guy. He's a brilliant guy. The president, he called Xi brilliant. Look, he runs 1.4 billion people with an iron head. No, he's not brilliant. Okay, they want me to say he's not a brilliant man. He's a very tough guy. He's a fierce person. He's a fierce person. When he sees Biden, he can't believe it. Okay, can't believe it. He says, what the hell? I think he thinks that they're playing a joke on him. But what's happening is we have tremendous power over China. China has made, right now we have the largest deficit we've ever had with China, like over $1 trillion. That means they're taking in more than $1 trillion. Think of how bad that is. Too much. You can't sustain that. But we have tremendous power over China. China built their military because of us. They built all this. They took so much money out of our country. We have great power over China. We can get along with China. I will get along with China. But they respected your president. They really did. He respected me. And they don't respect this guy at all. Nobody does. Nobody does.
Big league.
When you take a look at what's going on in Ukraine, you take a look at what's going on with Israel, you take a look at all this stuff.
Big league.
It's just the whole world is out of control. So Viktor Orban, Prime Minister of Hungary, is a very tough guy. He's known as a strong man. They say, oh, we like strong men. I don't like strong men, weak men. I don't care. He's just a smart guy and tough. He didn't take illegal immigrants. He said, I want Hungarians in my country. I don't need to have my shopping centers blown up. Make little statements like that. But the European Union wasn't exactly thrilled with him. And they asked him recently, they said, what has to be done to straighten out the world? The whole world is blowing up. He said, one simple thing. Elect Donald Trump as president.
Oy.
When he was president, China behaved, Russia behaved, everybody behaved. Don't forget, I stopped, you probably never even you guys, Nord Stream 2 was a pipeline being built. Nobody ever heard of it, except me. When I got in, I stopped it. Russia couldn't have their pipeline serving Germany. I said to Germany, so we're taking care of you with NATO, and then you're giving them, the people that we're defending you against, you're paying billions of dollars a month for oil and gas. I said, this doesn't sound right. The whole thing is crazy. And I terminated the pipeline. It was dead. And this guy came in and let him build it. But the Russian pipeline was dead. And yet I got along very well with Putin. But you got to be careful with Putin, because Putin, I'm watching him, and he's doing things now that aren't good. That aren't good. And he's dealing with somebody that has no clue how to play the game. This guy has no clue. It's a very serious problem. Very serious problem.
Let's talk about that in reference to Ukraine then. You said often we wouldn't be in this situation if I were president, but we are now in this situation. If you were president again, how do you deal with Ukraine? How do you deal with Putin?
I think I deal very well with him. We're in a much weaker position because he's winning. I mean, look, we can be nice. I asked Orban, I said, who's winning? If you watch the fake news, you think, well, even they aren't saying it now, because the spring offensive never happened. The spring offensive was the opposite, okay? But I said, who's winning? He said, they are. He said, they're a warring nation. They fought Napoleon. They fought Hitler. Ukraine is a very small country by comparison with far fewer people. They're running out of soldiers, you know. And I would get together. I get along very well with Zelensky because don't forget, he was very honorable with impeachment hoax number one. Hoax, they're all hoaxes. Everything they do is a hoax. I have impeachment hoax number one, impeachment hoax number two. I won both of them very easily.
Oh my
But unlike Richard Nixon, who didn't get
He
impeached
goes off on
before the
tangents.
impeachment. His greatest regret, by the way, is that he didn't stay and fight. You know that? His greatest regret. You know, he never fought. He wasn't impeached. He was told he was going to be impeached, and he never stayed. But the Republicans liked me more than they liked him. But what happens is we have to get, Zelensky was great because Zelensky, they called him and they said, when you had that the big magic phone conversation, think of the phone conversations in Washington. And here I am, I got a call from one of my secretaries, could you call him and congratulate him on his victory? Meaning he just got elected president. And I didn't do it. After like 10 times, I said, oh, I'll call him. Thanks, I got impeached. I'm saying, you know, that was Rick Perry, another genius, greatest debater ever, right? Rick Perry and his debating skills. He calls me up, and he says, could you call him? Now, he meant it well, because he liked, you know, the energy, I think it was the energy and stuff. So I called him up, and when they called him, and they asked him, were you threatened by Trump? He could have done a grandstand and said, yes, I felt it was very threatening. Now, fortunately, the call was taped. If the call wasn't taped, I might not be talking to you right now unless we're talking about a real estate project somewhere. Somehow you don't cover them very big on your show.
Wait.
But the call was taped, and it was a perfect call. In fact, when the Democrats heard it was taped, they had already started the impeachment. They died. When Nancy Pelosi heard that call, she said, he didn't do anything wrong. They got into it. But that call, fortunately, was taped, meaning they had stenographers, 2 military stenographers who were credible, and they had every word of it down, and it was a lie. The whole thing was a lie. But when they called Zelensky, he could have said, yes, I was threatened. And he didn't say that. He said, no, it was a very nice call. He said, nothing wrong. That was very nice. So I have a warm spot.
Have we given him too much money?
Yes, so we give him too much. Well, you're just
People are
delaying.
mad about it.
You said you could end it on day one.
I think not Dave, I said I could end it before I get to the White House. I expect to end it. I think I can end it very quickly. I get along very well with Putin, and I get along with Zelensky. And I would get him in a room, and I would get it ended.
Good.
I'll get it ended. And I have an exact plan as to how, but I can't tell you that. You know, I can't tell you about, like, let me tell you exactly, let me lay out my cards. No, I will get it ended.
Rachel mentioned the amount of money which turns the economy. We're $34 trillion in debt. We've printed money we don't have.
Yeah.
That's led to massive inflation. How do you change that and turn that around to average Americans out there who are struggling every single day, worse and worse under Joe Biden's economy?
So we were doing great. We were energy independent. We were soon going to be energy dominant. I didn't want the Russian pipeline to be built because of the fact, very simple, I wanted to supply them with the energy. The whole thing was we're going to make a fortune. We have more liquid gold than any country in the world, including Saudi Arabia, and then I do Anwar in Alaska, which is the biggest find. It's as big as Saudi Arabia. Some people say it's bigger. And Biden closes it up in his first week. The first Department of Interior, the person in charge, closed it in her first day in office. Ronald Reagan tried to get it. He couldn't get it. Everybody tried to get it. Bush, I got it. And they closed it up, but I'm going to reinstitute it very quickly. It'll happen very fast. But think of it. So we were rocking and rolling. We were energy independent. We were soon going to be double the size. We were third place, and even beyond that, when I took over, we were leading. You have to see a graph. Russia, Saudi Arabia above them, Russia second. We're third. And then we go like this. I mean, we were going to be energy dominant. We were doing things. The way you have to solve it is through growth. And
But
we
also
were gonna have to-
cutting, right, Mr. President?
Yes, growth and cutting. The problem I had is we were starting to really rock and roll. We had the greatest economy ever, then we got hit with COVID. And if I didn't throw money at COVID, we would have had a depression like in 1929. And if I don't win, you're gonna have a depression like in 1929. You know, I'll just say Scott, one of the greatest analysts on Wall Street, considered maybe the best, he said the only reason the stock market's high is because they think Trump is gonna win.
Listen, I think that one of your strongest points is that you're a businessman, and people love that you ran this country like a business. And I believe that if you got in office, you will get the oil pipes going again, we'll get energy going, and I believe that we will grow. But it's really hard when you're a politician to cut. Your friend Milei in Argentina, he cut whole agencies, and now they went from 25% growth per month in inflation down to 8% per month. So it works. Are you willing to?
You know he's MAGA. You know that.
I know he is. He's my friend. That's why I brought it up.
No, he's my biggest fan.
He's a great
Make
guy.
Argentina great again. It works out perfectly, right? No, that's what he calls it. He says he has hats. Make Argentina great again.
But he has, but he's cut agencies. Are you willing to make those kinds of dramatic cuts? Because I really think we have young kids, all of us. I think their futures are on the line. I mean, as you said, $34 trillion in debt. I think that means repaying almost $1 trillion in interest.
I'll give you an example.
She's dumb. They keep her on there because she's Latina and they don't want to fire her. Just like Karine Jean Pierre.
Department of Education.
You can't fire a fucking lesbian.
We have this
The
mess.
Department of Education?
And
Black
other
lesbian.
than to have a little tiny coordination, it would be nice to make sure that everybody's
Small.
teaching English. Let them learn English, okay?
I love this.
But, no, we're cutting the Department of Education. I was ready to do it before, and then, again, the COVID really, if we didn't throw money at that, you would have had a depression. We would have been in a depression. And when I got out, the stock market was higher than when, just before COVID came in.
So that would be the first thing, that would be the first
Oh, it's gonna
department you're
happen, that's
cut.
gonna happen immediately.
Okay.
We're gonna do like Department of Interior, there's so many things you can do. One of the things that's so bad for us is the environmental agencies. They make it impossible to do anything. And so in Louisiana, they had these massive refineries that, LNG plants, but massive, essentially refineries. 14, 15 years they've been trying to get permits. I got it done in one day. One day I got the permit. Don't tell anybody, please. I got it. I didn't know who the hell was doing it. In one case, Japan was putting, and by the way, they're like $20 billion, massive. These are like the Empire State Building laid down ×2 on its side. All pipes, I mean, it's unbelievable, on the coast. In Louisiana, and I got those things, the first one I got done in like 24 hours. They worked on it for 14 years. And it was terrible. I mean, what they were doing, the environmental agencies have stopped doing, they stop you from doing business in this country. And we did a great job.
It's a war on Americans.
We asked viewers of Fox and Friends Weekend to submit some questions to ask you. We'd love to ask you a few of these questions on their behalf. I'll start with Lisa in Florida. She says, which Democrat, dead or alive, would you sit down for dinner with to discuss ways to unify our country?
So he's not a Democrat anymore, but I used to get along really well with Joe Manchin. I got along with him, and we'd meet a lot. He said, "You're doing a great job, you're a great president." And when this impeachment hoax started happening, he said, "I'll never vote against you, you're a great president." And then he voted against me, I never spoke to him again. Okay? So that was one, but that was the one that I sat down. I'd sit down with anybody, frankly. I want to unify the country.
Laura from Nebraska said, I'm the mother of 2 Army officers. What are you going to do to rebuild our military? And I would add to that, rip out the woke stuff that's happening.
Oh, yeah.
All the
Well,
vets and service members see is embedded in our Pentagon right now.
You know the military better than anybody. I'd put him in charge, I really would. I often think of it.
You do a great
I
job.
talked to him about it a little bit. We talked about
Let
VA.
go of them easily.
Again, we ended up doing one. No, the show has to do worse. If the show does worse, if I see the ratings go down, I'm gonna steal them. I'll steal all of you, frankly. But no, he would be unbelievable at defense. He would be unbelievable at defense or at the VA. The VA they did a good job though. They ended up doing a good job. You know,
They're trying to undo a lot of that stuff.
Oh, they were undoing it.
Yeah.
We did 2 things. Number one, I got the right to fire people. We fired 9,000 sadists, horrible people. They were beating up. These people are sick. The other thing I got where you could go out, if you couldn't get good service, you go out, and Pete was driving me crazy about this. We know each other a little bit, but we know each other only in a positive way. He would call up and say, soldiers are waiting for 3 and 4 months to see a doctor. They couldn't say it. And I got it actually approved through Congress. And now what they're doing is they're ending that. Where if it took, well, think if going to the hospital and the doctor with your kids, your husband, who's great, by the way. He's great. He'd fit into this panel very well. Where is he? Oh, look at him. Oh, I saw a guy with a pink shirt. I didn't look up. And I knew he would never wear a pink shirt, so I didn't. Wow. Good. I'm glad I said the right thing. He is. He's great. He's a great, he's a great champion. He climbs in the streets for years.
I want to ask you what Rena in Liberty, Maine asks. By the way, your sleep schedule, your diet, these are things of legend.
You don't
So
sleep.
she asks, President Trump, what is the very first thing you do every morning?
So I don't sleep a lot. I don't say that as a badge of courage. You know, a lot of people who don't sleep, and they maybe do. I rarely eat breakfast. It's funny, I love food, but I don't necessarily, I'm too anxious. I really enjoy life. It's crazy. I should enjoy life. I get indicted, I get impeached, somebody said, how do you live? You know the most often question? I get two questions. Number one, I get, will they do it again? You know what that means? Very ominous. I said, they're gonna try, because they can't help themselves. They're bad. But we hope we're gonna have them blocked, okay? The other question is, how do you do it? How do you stand up and you get impeached, you get indicted, you get this, you get convicted of bullshit. And they say,
Wait.
how do you do it? I get that question from very big, like you see the cars out here, you see the biggest people all over, the biggest people on Wall Street, they say, how do you do it? How do you do it? They get a letter from the SEC that's a friendly civil letter, and they can't sleep for 2 weeks. They say, how do you do it? And that's what I've never been able to answer. I don't know. The reason I think I can do that is because I know how great this country can be, and it's so big. It's such an important thing that I'm doing. I enjoy doing it. I have obstacles. These obstacles, it would be so nice not to have a phony Russia hoax. Look at the Russia scam. It was just a scam. For 2 years it went on. And you want to do business with Russia, make a lot of money, you know, it's good. They forced, and now the worst thing happened. Russia has been forced into the arms of China. This is something that if you're 10 years old studying history, you learn never let Russia and China get together. Well, between Obama and Biden, they forced Russia. I had it opposite. Problem I had though, I had the hoax. I had the hoax going on. It was harder for me. I'd say to Putin, you know, he would actually say to me, he said, we could make wonderful deals for our countries, but it's very tough. I said, it's very tough for me. Because if I made a deal, they'd say, oh, the Russia deal, the Russia hoax, you know, he loves Putin and all that stuff. So we understood it. But we got along very well. We had a very good relationship.
And Ukraine war has obviously brought Russia and China together closer, right?
It's brought a tremendous, it's an axis, it's a new axis. It's also brought Iran into the picture. And it's brought a little bit North Korea back into the picture. You know, I got along great with him. Kim Jong-un, when I went to meet him, remember the famous couple of meetings? I got along great with him. I know him quite well. And he's a very smart guy. They hate when I say that. But we had it going so good. And now all these people that are against us have become like a partnership. And a lot of bad things are happening. The Taiwan situation, yeah, you can give them a couple of more minutes, fellas. That's all right. Okay, somebody's saying to end it. We'll give them a couple of more minutes, okay?
Thank you.
For Sean, in honor of Sean with his when you look at what's happening now, the whole world is lining up against us. And our allies are getting very weak for us. They're no longer for us. But watch what's happening with China and Taiwan. That's a big deal. It's a big deal.
May I follow up? He said,
Please.
talk to us about, you just love life and you care about this country. People ask you, why do you do this? How can you do this? I mean, not to mention the rally after rally, the energy. But maybe the question isn't how do you do this over and over, but how does your family do this? All the obstacles, you know, these are things you care about, your ambitions for the country. What about everybody around you?
So I think in many ways it's tougher on them than it is on me. They're good people, all of them, everyone. I have a wonderful wife who has to listen to this stuff all the time. They do that for this reason. They do that, all these salacious names that they put in of these people. And I'm not even allowed to defend myself because of the gag order. Think of it. But they put this stuff in to create havoc. These are bad people. I know everything they're doing. I know every move they make. I get it. But a lot of people don't. But it's tougher, I think it's probably, in many ways, it's tougher on my family than it is in me. You know, my sons, I mean, they're great, and they work hard, and Don's become pretty right. He's become, and, you know, they went after this young guy, Don. All he wanted to do is help the country, and he's been in federal grand juries and things at the beginning for hours and hours about Russia. Think of it. I'll never forget. Adam Schiff was a real sleazebag. Probably will become a senator. It's hard to believe. But a real sleazebag. He comes out of a meeting, an intelligence meeting, and he says, now think of how bad you are. You make up with Hillary and the others. He knew it was a hoax, Russia, Russia, Russia. So he knew it was a hoax. Comes out, and he looks very solemn, you know, watermelon head, with the thinnest neck I've ever seen. He's not going to be a football player. His neck is holding up this massive watermelon. But he comes in, this is one of the more unattractive people. I know you're not supposed to say that, so that's okay, I'll be out of politics. But he comes out, and he says, with, you know, no stupid guy, and he says with, you know, such dignity, Donald Trump Jr. will go to jail because of what he's done with Russia. There is no Russia, Russia, Russia deal. And he's saying that my son, who's a young guy, is going to go to jail. And I call my son, and I'm watching this. It's a big headline. Schiff predicts. Remember when he said he has all this info? He had nothing, because the kid didn't know anything about Russia. He knew less about Russia than your husband knows, okay? Unless they had any trees in Russia that you climbed. So Donald Trump Jr. will go to jail because of what he's done with Russia. And he knows it's a hoax. He's talking about a young man going to jail about something that he knows is a hoax. How bad do you have to be?
Right.
And I call him up. I say, Don, are you okay? Yeah, I don't know what they're saying. He didn't even know, you know, he didn't have any idea what was going on. It's a shame. And he became tougher. I mean, you almost, two things happen. You either become tougher, or you go into a corner and you put your thumb in your mouth and you say, Mommy, take me home. Right? And he chose not to do that.
Well, I'm glad that that's the case. And by the way, as a having come from a political family and my husband having run for office, that what's happened to your family in particular,
Oh,
it just breaks my heart. How's mom?
She's fine, but I think it's very hard for her. I mean, she's fine, but it's, you know, she has to read all this crap. It's stuff that shouldn't even be put in the trial. The judge should have never allowed it to be in the trial. And she has to read all this stuff?
What about Barron? People started to focus on Barron recently.
He's amazing, actually, in a certain way. He's tall, good-looking guy. He's a very good student. And he's applied to colleges and gets into everywhere he goes. You know, he's very sought after from the standpoint. He's a very smart guy. He's a very tall guy. But he's a great kid. He's cool. He's pretty cool, I'll tell you. You know, it's very interesting. Colleges, you know, 6 months ago, you look at a college and you sort of want a certain college, and then you see all of these colleges are rioting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe you want to go to a different kind of a college, because there's plenty of colleges that we also like that are different and they don't riot.
This is Sharon from Alabama, and I think her question actually ties into what we were just talking about. How do you do this? And I know that you've said before that you've been sustained by the prayers of lots of Americans. I've seen pictures of people praying over you.
It's incredible, actually.
Her question is, she says, you've been faced with so much adversity and persecution for years. What's your relationship with God like, and how do you pray? That's Sharon from Alabama.
Okay, so I think it's good. I do very well with the evangelicals. I love the evangelicals. And I have more people saying they pray for me. I can't even believe it. And they are so committed, and they're so believing. They say, sir, you're going to be okay. I pray for you every night. I mean, everybody, almost, I can't say everybody, but almost everybody that sees me, they say it. It's such a beautiful thing. You know what's a beautiful thing too? When you look at all of this bad stuff going on, they have nothing to look up to. They have no God. They have no anything. They kill people. They beat people. They push people into subways. There's just nothing there. Religion is such a great thing. It keeps you, you know, there's something to be good about. You want to be good. It's so important. And I don't know if it's explained right. I don't know if I'm explaining it right now. But when you have something like that, you want to be good. You want to go to heaven. okay? You want to go to heaven. If you don't have heaven, you almost say, oh, what's the reason? Why do I have to speak it? Let's not be good. What difference does it make? Right?
Or they try to create heaven here. Exit question real quick, we'll end where we started. Attorney General, what are you, we talked about how you fix the DOJ, how you bring justice back to this country. When we talk to people, people's faith in the system is shattered. I mean, absolutely shattered. We've seen it in your fundraising.
It should be.
So who do you choose? What kind of, do you have a name that's top on your list?
I do have a couple, and one in particular, but I made a lot of good choices. I got that one wrong. I was very loyal to one because he was the first senator to endorse me. As soon as conflict came up, he ran for the hills. And actually the second one, he ran for the hills. When he heard that he was going to be impeached, they were going to impeach him. And he was like a different person. I had to get rid of him. And I would say that was the one thing, one of the truly important positions as Attorney General. And I was very disappointed at both of those Attorney Generals. Jeff Sessions was, I don't blame myself too much. He was some position in Alabama, and he wanted to be so bad. And he was the first senator to endorse me. And again, I was sort of a civilian. I didn't have a lot of people. I didn't know that many senators. And he went to a rally in Mobile. The fact is that we had 72,000 people, so it wasn't that big a shot. But he came to me and he said, I'd love to be Attorney General. And I didn't see it.
Okay, love
And
you.
he came 3 or 4 times, and I said, just out of loyalty, I did it. And he ran for the hills because it's nasty.
Love you, Mama.
It's a nasty business. This is a nasty world.
How do you find
And
this?
Barr,
Find
I know, Barr was threatened. In all fairness to him, he didn't want to, he was Attorney General. He was a respected guy. And they said they were going to impeach him. I understand that. I said, I got impeached twice and my numbers went up, which is unusual. I said, it's not so bad to be impeached. What are they going to impeach me? He had no idea what they were going to impeach. But he was going to be impeached. They didn't know why. They didn't know why. It's like they took me to trial. There's no crime. They were trying to devise the crime during the trial. That's how bad it was. But with Barr, and he let me down. He let me down. He let down our country. He endorsed me the other day, as you saw, right? But he let down our country. It takes a brave person to do it. People don't want to be impeached. They don't want to be indicted by these scoundrels who are much more evil than people. I'm telling you, China and Russia, they're not the problem. We have a problem from within that's really bad. So he let us down. The key to really good government, where we had like Lighthizer and some of these people that were really good, it's the person that's at the top. If you get the right person, it's like magic. It's like in real estate, you put a good super in a building, the building runs well. You put a bad one in, it doesn't. It's the same thing at a little bit slightly larger scale. But we had great people. I rebuilt the military. We did things that were amazing. One of the things that the people that watch your show should know, we defeated ISIS quickly. I was told it would take 5 years. I did it in a matter of weeks, right? Fast. And they did it fantastically. And I got to know the real fighting generals. There's not woke in the military. There's woke at the top. They want there to be woke. But these guys aren't meant for woke. I really don't. I really think, they're like you. They're like this guy. He's doing a great job, by the way. I don't know him. I don't know him like you, but the whole combination, it works.
Are you going to fire those generals? The woke generals at the top? Because Keith's been talking about
Yes, I would get rid of him. But see, now I know him. I didn't know him before. But, I came in. What do I know? I was a New York real estate person. But no, I'd fire him. I would fire them. You can't have woke military. You said it so great. You need people that want to win. They want to win wars. That's what their purpose is, to win wars, not to be woke. But we do have great military. You look at what we did. Look at I was the only one in 78 years or something. I didn't start any wars. I finished wars. I got out of Syria. I took our soldiers home. I would have moved a lot of them out of Germany. I was going to move them out of Germany. Not all of them, but I would have moved. We have 45,000. So that's like,
bring them along.
What we do by
protect our border.
We're giving Germany this massive shot in the arm, and then they don't treat us well in trade.
Yep.
But we have a great military, and there's nothing woke about it other than those top guys. I used to watch Milley sit there in Congress and talk about, he's trying to understand this and that mind. I won't get into it, but certain minds, I say, is this guy crazy? But it's one of those things. I've gotten to know a lot of the
I'm
generals.
OCD, I have
because
to
of
clean the floor.
Things we did. And we had some unbelievable wins, as you know. We had some wins with terrorists, the two biggest terrorists in the world ever. I took out, you know, so we have some great things planned. It's very important, the people that run the agencies, if you get the good ones, and I think I have great ones slated, but if you get the good ones, it's like magic. And we had mostly good ones. You think more about the bad ones. We had some bad ones too.
Well, Mr. President, you had an eventful week. We
I would say
appreciate
that's
you.
true.
We appreciate you doing your first interview with us here at Fox and Friends Weekend after New York. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I think your show is great. Your chemistry is amazing on television, and congratulations. I don't know what they're paying you, but I think it should be more.
That's awesome.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I got my first view on that. I wish I could do, wish I could do Sean's videos. Sean is actually a guy that I met on a YouTube channel, Bob. I wonder if I could do, no, some type of music, but I don't think it'll allow me. Tired. I think the whole problem, I think we're gonna have an issue is when the Democrats are so desperate to not allow him to win. Mark my words, I think there's gonna be a tragedy. And I think y'all know what I mean. And when it does happen, the country's gonna revolt. This is pretty clean.
Mind throughout the entire process. All right, I yield back. I now recognize the majority staff for no longer than 30 minutes of questions.
Dr. Fauci, it's good to see you again. I want to ask a couple questions about some of the members' questions and then get into some follow-ups. The issue of the CIA trip was brought up. That was brought to us by a whistleblower. That was not an allegation made by the committee. It was an allegation made by the whistleblower. You testified at a transcribed interview back in early January. Do you recall me asking you about that allegation?
About the going to the CIA?
Yes. And do you recall, and you denied it then as well, and you denied it here today, do you recall the subcommittee publishing that you denied it?
I don't recall,
We did.
we did, okay.
We put it out in a press release afterwards that you denied the whistleblower's allegation. And then today, during the course of the last couple hours, have any members on the majority side of the dais asked you about a trip to the CIA?
Yeah.
They have? This
No,
side?
yeah, I'm sorry, Mitch, I'm not hearing this so well.
Oh my God.
I have a point of order, Mr. Chairman.
You're a dumbass. He's a fucking
What's the gentleman's point of
dumbass.
I have an inquiry about whether or not I'm hearing things, whether or not you just yielded 30 minutes of committee time to staff.
That is correct, both sides.
Wow.
And the question that the gentleman just raised was a question that I raised. So apparently he was not listening when I was questioning Dr. Felch.
Thank you for your point of order. You may continue.
What I asked was, we asked you about this in a transcript interview. You testified that you did not go to the CIA. We published that you refuted that allegation. And then today, no members of the Republican side of the dais have asked you that question. Is that accurate? Thank you. You've been asked a number of times about your former senior advisor, Dr. Morin's, and have said, and I want to make sure I characterize it correctly because it goes a little back and forth, that you didn't conduct official business over a personal email with Dr. Morin's. Has Dr. Morin's emailed your personal email before on non-official purposes?
As I mentioned, we wrote scientific papers together, so he very well may have used that. Of course, that's the email I use when I write a scientific paper. Right.
And that's because NIAID policy allows you to write on semi-official time, write papers, but you just have to put a disclaimer that this is not the.
No, in other words, if you're doing something as official business, you shouldn't use your emails that are the official business. So in order to be compliant with the regulations, you would use a personal email.
I appreciate it. I want to ask about some of the public health policies enacted during the pandemic. Dr. Francis Collins, the former NIH director, recently said in an interview, and I'm quoting, you attach an infinite value to stopping the disease and saving a life. You attach a zero value to whether this actually totally disrupts people's lives, ruins the economy, and has kept many kids out of school in a way that they never quite recovered. Understanding the COVID task force had a lot of voices at the table, is that an accurate description of the public health advisors, and then you could fit in other advisors along the way?
We are, Mitch, what I believe that Dr. Collins was saying was that we give advice based on pure public health issues. It's very, very clear now, retrospectively, looking at the potential collateral negative effects of things like mandating. It would be important for us now, since the purpose of, I believe, why we're here, is to how we can do better next time, is to consider the balance. I think things that we did in the beginning were in the context of horrible situation of 4,000 to 5,000 deaths per day. But that doesn't mean that you don't go back and look and say, did everything we do at that point and the duration for which we did it, was that appropriate, and do we need to re-examine? I believe that's what Dr. Collins was referring to, and I agree with him on that.
And you got to my next question, that we are here trying to figure out how to do better next time, lose fewer lives next time. Would that be a better thought process going forward of thinking about the possible unintended consequences of public health measures?
Absolutely.
And you've heard from both sides of the dais today, first weeks, months, novel virus, nobody knew what was going on, called for some drastic measures. Once there was a better understanding of who the most affected demographics were, do you think it would be important to more narrowly craft public health measures to specifically favor those demographics?
The answer is yes, but you have to be careful. Because if you have a certain group that is being predominantly afflicted, if you're really, really clear that another group is really quite protected, then you should fashion it demographically related. But what often happens with outbreaks is that they're a moving target, and you only hear about other vulnerables as you get further into the outbreak. So the answer to your question is you're partially correct that you need to do that, but you've got to be careful when you're dealing with a moving target.
And we can appreciate that. You've been asked a little bit again about the theories of natural immunity and herd immunity. Those are both real scientific theories in infectious disease, is that correct?
Yes.
And between infection-acquired immunity and vaccinated-acquired immunity, did the United States hit herd immunity?
The answer is no, and I've written a paper on that, is that when you're dealing, and just let me take 30 seconds, I don't want to run out the clock on you, but I think it's important to make this point. When you talk about herd immunity, it's predicated on two principles: that you're dealing with a pathogen that's not changing, and number two, that when you either get infected or vaccinated, the duration of the immunity is measured in decades, if not a lifetime. So that if you have a pathogen that stays the same, like measles doesn't change. So I was infected with measles when I was a child. It's the same measles that's infecting people in certain countries in the developing world. Number two, when you get either infected or vaccinated with measles, you have immunity that's durable minimally in decades and possibly for life. So if you get the same pathogen and you get a large percentage of the people who have either been infected or vaccinated, then you have herd immunity. We did not ever have that with COVID.
And you've also been asked a number of times about the vaccine and vaccine mandates. Were you the one that recommended to the president to mandate vaccines for certain individuals?
No.
Do you know who did?
No, it was more of it was a combination of a group and just saying that, you know, certain agencies like the Labor Department or what have you would feel that this would be done. But it was not like I one day said, hey, we should mandate vaccines. That did not happen.
And I want to echo the comments of the chairman that we agree the vaccine saved hundreds of thousands of lives. And we talked about this a little bit in January, and I think you touched on it a little bit today. Could issuing these mandates and removing the notion of informed consent from some certain sects of the citizenry lead to vaccine hesitancy?
Yeah, I mentioned this, I believe, in the TI, that as a matter of fact, that's something that I think we need to go back now when we do an after the event evaluation about whether or not, given the psyche of the country and the pushback that you get from those types of things, we need to reevaluate the cost-benefit ratio of those types of things.
And then I won't belabor the point, but we talked about the 6 foot distance an awful lot today. Do you recall if it was ever suggested to be 10 feet?
You know, I don't recall, Mitch, if it was ever suggested it was 10 feet, but when I made my explanation of what it was, I was saying that there was no trial that looked at 10 versus 6 versus 3 versus not even worrying about it at all.
And you said today that there were discussions at the White House about the 6 foot rule. You don't recall if it was discussions about whether or not it should be 3 or should be 10 or should be 6?
I don't recall, Mitch, what the exact discussion was, but as I've said in response to multiple questions, what we had, the CDC was said that on the basis of their evaluation, which was based on the droplet approach, that 6 foot would be to go. And since there was no clinical trials going one way or the other, that's why it was accepted by the group.
And then it hasn't been a large topic today, and we talked about kind of, again, the many unknowns in early 2020. Schools were closed through the semester. Some schools reopened for the fall semester. Some remained closed going through into 2021. Looking back, are there current academic ramifications of remote schooling or kids not being in school?
I think there have been a number of I know that there have been a number of studies to show that there are lasting effects, at least up to this point. They tend to attenuate over time, but there have been substantial negative effects on learning and on children when you keep them out of school for a prolonged period of time.
Have you seen any studies suggesting physical health ramifications?
I haven't seen physical health ramifications.
Mental health?
I believe that there are some that show psychological issues that relate to keeping kids out of the environment, of the social environment at school.
And apologize for bouncing around. We don't have 14 hours with you today. I've got 30 minutes, so
I'm so sorry about that.
I'm gonna move quickly.
Yeah.
Again, across the dais, both sides of the aisle, a lot of questions on the origins of COVID and finding out the origins and how that could better lead to both protecting against spillover and wildlife trade, but also increased biosafety standards. As you sit here today, is it possible that COVID-19 was the result of a laboratory-related accident?
Oh, absolutely. And like I mentioned multiple times, I keep an open mind. I feel, based on the data that I have seen, that the more likely, not definitive, but the more likely explanation is a natural spillover from an animal reservoir. But since there has not been definitive proof one way or the other, we have to keep an open mind that it could be either.
And based on that answer, I think, is the hypothesis that COVID-19 accidentally leaked from a lab a conspiracy theory?
No, I mentioned that several times. Conceptually, the concept of it is not a conspiracy theory.
We've talked a little bit about the proximal origin of SARS-CoV-2, the paper authored by Dr. Anderson. It came to two primary conclusions, and I'm quoting, "Our analysis clearly show that SARS-CoV-2 is not a laboratory construct or a purposefully manipulated virus, and we do not believe that any type of laboratory-based scenario is plausible." Do you disagree with those conclusions?
What?
I think, Mitch, if I'm not mistaken, I don't have the paper in front of me, I think they also said the possibility of if you passaged it and you could have done that.
And
And if you passage it, it's in a lab. So it is, I mean, that could be.
Arrogant
And
fuck.
they dispelled that at the end with we do not believe that any type of laboratory-based scenario is plausible. So I ask again, is a laboratory-based scenario plausible?
Well, I mean, again, I don't want to speak for what they meant in that paper, but I have said multiple times, I keep an open mind that it could be either a laboratory leak or it could be what I think the data is leaning towards mostly, which is a natural occurrence from an animal reservoir.
And this email was brought up too on April 16th, 2020. Dr. Collins wrote to you and said, wondering if there's something NIH can do to help put down this very destructive conspiracy, referencing the lab leak. I hope the Nature Medicine article on the genomic sequence of SARS-CoV-2 would settle this, but probably didn't get much visibility. Anything more we can do? The next day, you were at a White House press conference and cited proximal origin and said that proximal origin established that COVID-19, quote, is totally consistent with a jump of a species from an animal to human. Did anyone tell you to cite proximal origin from the White House podium?
No, it was in response, I believe, to a question that might have been asked by a reporter, but I wasn't stimulated to say that at all. I was responding to a question.
At that time, back in April 2020, was it also your belief that a lab leak was possible?
Yeah, I've always had an open mind about it.
And then I want to correct the record again a little bit on the drafting and publication of the proximal origin paper. Did Dr. Anderson send you drafts to review?
He sent drafts, but I'm going to jump ahead of you, if I might, dribble around. I did not edit it. That was mentioned by a few of the congressmen. I did not edit the paper.
And I appreciate that. I just wanted to get on the record. I want to talk about Dr. Morin's and what you wrote in your opening testimony and some of the answers that you gave today. And just for clarity, you were, in addition to being unaware of his use of personal email and potentially intentionally deleting federal records, were you also unaware of his actions to assist Dr. Dazik and EcoHealth?
I was aware of his friendship. I was not aware of his attempts to assist him to respond to an NIH inquiry.
So not aware of the editing of press releases or editing of letters?
No, I was not.
On November 11th, 2021, Dr. Morin's wrote in an email to Dr. Dazik that he attempted to discuss the EcoHealth grant with you, and you quote, got upset and told him to have no more communications with Peter. Why did you tell Dr. Morenz to no longer communicate with Dr. Desk?
Because I think it's inappropriate to do what he did. I mean, and your committee has called him out very definitively about that, and it was inappropriate to do that.
This is back in 2021.
Right.
What did you know about what he was doing then?
I didn't know exactly what he was doing, but I don't think it's inappropriate for people to be communicating and helping a grantee in a response.
Is it
I didn't know
inappropriate to be
exactly
sitting
what
in
he
a
was
fucking
doing,
baseball stadium
but I
with
didn't
your
think it was
mask off?
appropriate.
You fucked.
When did you testify to Chairman Griffith, or Chairman Comer, that you knew about the compliance issues later on with
Right.
EcoHealth? When did you first become aware?
I became aware during briefings by my staff in preparation for congressional hearings, well after the fact where the compliance issues actually happened. And I didn't know, as I mentioned to you in the TI pitch, I didn't even know the grant existed before the outbreak. And then finally, when there was this issue about congressional hearings, I needed to know, what is this grant? What are we doing with it? And are there any issues? That's when they said there was a compliance problem of the 4th year versus the 5th year progress report.
Some of the other emails from Dr. Morenz, I just want to read into the record and ask you if his recollection is accurate. On April 27th, 2020, Dr. Morenz wrote, "I'm sure privately he would love to see Peter and EcoHealth fully restored, although he did once make the comment to me that Peter had screwed himself with the late report. I already told him that all that crap wasn't true." The late report was true, despite what Dr. Morenz said. On April 21st, 2021, Dr. Morenz wrote that he was sure you would do anything you could to restore the funds to EcoHealth. On June 5th, 2021, Dr. Morenz wrote that you were working behind the scenes to undo the damage to EcoHealth. On October 21st, 2021, Dr. Morenz wrote, "Peter, I had my regular meeting with Tony this morning. He immediately inquired about you and several times asked how you were doing. He used a lot of colorful language about the situation with attacks on EcoHealth." On October 25th, 2021, Dr. Morenz wrote that you were trying to protect EcoHealth. On March 22nd, 2021, Dr. Morenz wrote, "The most important is within NIH to get the decision reversed and the grant refunded. I believe Tony would like to do this."
Late.
And on February 24th, 2022, Dr. Morenz